Hi, mystery writers. All right, today we're going to focus on mystery novel structure simplified. We're going to boil it down to the essentials. But first, I want to thank you for being here. And if you're enjoying this series, hey, buy me a cup of coffee. There's a link in the description below. Okay, so let's talk about structure and first of all, how it's easy to get stuck, especially if you're a beginning writer. If you're trying to find the right structure for your mystery and your head is swirling, this condensed structure may help you get to writing your story. I know how it's easy to get bogged down, when you choose a story structure and then you try to fit what you're writing into that structure. So this is going to free you up to just write your story, all right? It's easy to get lost in counting beats or where the next pinch point is, or worse, wondering if some scene in your story is the pinch point. So you don't have to think about that with this simplified structure, all right? When you're writing your first draft, your primary goal is to get the story written. You just want to get the story down, get it written. Um, you may have a plan, an outline, or plot of how you'll present the puzzle of the mystery and how your sleuth will go about discovering the villain. Or you may not even know who the villain is yet, right? You just have an idea for your story. Or you may change who the villain is as you write. Things happen as you write, so you want to pay attention to that. So, to keep structure simple while you're writing that first draft, think of your mystery novel as having 4 parts. And with each part, your style, your voice, the psychological depth that you present in your characters, the action, the dialogue, the setting, all of those things are up to you. You can do whatever you want. We're just looking at the basic 4 parts of a mystery. Because what you want to do is satisfy your mystery reader's desire to solve a puzzle. You want to give them a puzzle, and following this 4-part structure will help you meet your reader's expectations. All right. So let's just go through them. So part 1 is the introduction and the setup. So you plunge your reader into your story by introducing your protagonist to the sleuth and also the world of the story. So you want to give a sense of time and place. You want to introduce your sleuth. You want to show your sleuth in action. You want to demonstrate at least one of your sleuth's detecting skills. So what you're doing in this setup is you're giving your reader a promise that this is a mystery and this is the kind of story they want to read. So you're setting your reader up that this is a mystery. Here's your detective. Here's the world. All right. And then you're going to introduce the crime. And this is usually a murder. And the one last piece of this first part is your sleuth takes on the case. They may, if they're in law enforcement, they may assign that case, or for private investigators and cozy mysteries, your character protagonist decides, yes, they're going to take this case on. And that's pretty much what you want to include in this first introduction and setup part of your story. The first part of your story, this first part, sets your reader expectations of whether they want to follow your sleuth through the entire puzzle solving story. This is where you get your reader involved. You get them to care about your character, get them to care about the crime, all right? So You want to get your reader to care about the protagonist, and that's why you want to show your protagonist in action using their skills. It may be something simple, but you still want to show your reader that, yep, this is the person I want to follow. All right. Okay, so part two. Your detective has taken on the case for whatever the reason, and now they have to discover what's what. So I call this the discovery phase. So, and this phase, part two, your detective is gathering more and more and more information. So once your sleuth takes on the case, they venture into this discovery phase and they look for clues, they gather evidence, they have revelations that will help them identify the villain later on. All right. Now it's just like, think of it as gathering all this information to try to make sense of it all. And we'll talk about the making sense of it all in a minute. All right. So, first of all, they need to discover the victim's world. Who's in that victim's world? These are possible suspects. And what was in that victim's world? What did the victim do? How did they relate to other people? What was their job? What was their function? What were their hobbies? Whatever is relevant to your mystery story. So your reader gets a sense of that victim and begins to wonder, why would somebody want to kill this person? All right. Now, also like evidence and clues about the crime, depending on the type of mystery that you're writing. Um, you're going to have a lot of physical evidence or only some physical evidence and clues, but that's up to you. But this is where you start piling those in and where you can add red herrings that are false clues. You want to identify the suspects, the people who had a relationship with the victim, and that's from discovering more about the victim's world and who's in it. Your detective interviews these suspects to learn more about the victim, to learn more about that suspect, and also to learn more about other suspects in the story. All right, so more information, more information, more information. All right. And at the same time as all this information is coming to your detective starts to formulate hypotheses and raise questions about the crime and about the various suspects and even about the victim. Is what your detective learning about the victim, is that really what it was? All right, you're raising a lot of questions in this section of your story. And also, this is the place where you introduce any subplots. So if you have love interests, or your mentor goes on a personal quest, or your sidekick goes on a quest, any of those things, you introduce those also in the second part of your story. So you're giving your reader all this information, and you're making the puzzle bigger, as it were, for your reader. So this section of your mystery is all about expanding the reader's view of what happened and who might have been involved. And your sleuth also speculates on relationships and motivations. And this leads you up to the midpoint of the story, which is about halfway through your mystery. And at the midpoint, your detective comes up short. Everything, all this information that they've been gathering, all these interviews of suspects, and all of this, it's not getting them any closer to solving the puzzle. And it's very frustrating. In some stories, the detective may also think about giving up because it's just not working for whatever reasons you've presented. Everything that they thought about the puzzle up to this point is wrong. And at the midpoint, they discover that everything they thought so far was wrong, and they devise a new way to look at everything so far, all right? Which leads them into part 3 after the midpoint. And I call this part the funnel because first first half is just gathering all this information. There's just so much, and you've raised all these questions for your reader. And now you're going to start asking more questions, but answering some of those questions that were raised in the first half. And you're narrowing it down so by the end of the third part, your sleuth has a pretty good idea of who the villain is, all right? So once your sleuth starts looking in new ways after the midpoint, they dig deeper and they re-examine and they rethink everything they've discovered. So what you're going to have in this section is new viewpoints that put everything so far in a different light. And as your sleuth reviews what they know, they uncover new interpretations of the evidence and the clues and those interviews that they had before. They're now reinterpreting everything that they learned so far. And they're questioning the old way, and they re-examine and review, and they re-interview suspects because questions have come up, and they're like, want to make certain that what that suspect said really fits with their new view of what's going on, all right? They may interview suspects a second or even a third time, just trying to get it all straight in their head, and at the same time gaining new information. So in this process, as it goes along, your detective starts eliminating suspects. So you may start out with maybe 6 or 8 suspects. And in this third part of your mystery, you start narrowing the field. That's why I call it a funnel, because it starts big and it narrows down as your detective discovers that the suspects were only suspects, but they weren't really involved in the crime, all right? So you want to narrow that focus all the way down to one suspect. And also in this section of your story, you want to start closing out all the subplots. Whatever subplots you started in that first half, you want to start closing them off, because I'm going to get to this in a minute. Once you reveal who the villain is, your mystery reader is done. They come for the mystery, they come for the puzzle. Once the puzzle is solved, the story's over in their head. All right? So you want to keep them on pins and needles until you actually reveal who is the one. So at this point, your detective says, I think I know who did it, but they don't say who did it. We're saving that for the fourth part, all right? So from all the evidence and knowledge collected in that first half, in the second half, your sleuth uses their skills to narrow the focus down to one possible suspect, the villain. That's what happens in this third part of your mystery. And then there's part 4. So we have 4 parts. That's it. There are 4 parts, and the fourth part is the reveal. And your reader has followed your sleuth, trying to outguess them throughout the story. And if you've hinted and misdirected, the reveal of the real villain will be a surprise. And that's your reader's reward for following your detective and reading your story. The reveal is the reader's reward, all right? So in this section, basically, your detective reveals who the villain is. They confront that villain. The villain may come to justice some way or another. Um, your detective explains how they finally figured it out. So your reader understands how they figured out this was the real villain. And as soon as that happens, you really want to conclude your story, because once you've rewarded your reader, that's it for them. So if you have long, long sessions afterward, or you haven't closed off your subplots before the reveal, it's going to feel like anticlimactic for a mystery reader. So that's why you want to get all those things done before you do the reveal. Save the reveal till the very, very end of your story, and then wrap it up really quickly, because you've given your mystery reader the reward. The puzzle is solved. All right. Once you've rewarded your reader, just bring your story to a quick conclusion. I can't emphasize this enough. The reason is your reader's going to feel good when your detective reveals the villain and confronts them, and they're captured and off they go, to their just rewards. And as far as mystery readers are concerned, that's it. And if you prolong your story too much after that happens, your reader's going to come away with a sense of, well, that's a pretty good mystery, but I don't know, it just felt kind of, and they won't be able to explain it. But the reason is you've given them the reward, and that's it. That's it. The mystery is the puzzle. Present the puzzle, put the puzzle pieces together, put that final piece in place, reveal the villain, and the story's over. So after that happens, bring your story to a quick conclusion, and your readers are going to be happy if you do that. All right. So this 4-part structure actually speeds up your writing. It frees you from thinking about, is this the right beat, or I don't know, does this go before or after the midpoint, and what's a pinch point I've forgotten, and is this an inciting incident? Just don't worry about any of those things. Just know you're doing these 4 sections, and it'll really help you just write your story. Some writers want to plan everything before they write, and so this is going to be not for them, all right? Because that planning does help speed writing, because they know what happens in each scene. But for beginning writers, this simplified structure frees you from trying to figure out all that involved plotting, and helps you frame where you are in the mystery without getting lost in plot questions. You can use your editing time to make all those beat adjustments. All right. All right. So the first draft is about getting your story done. So think setup, expand, gather all that information, gather. Setup, expand, contract, and reveal. That's it. Setup, expand, contract, and reveal. And you're leading your reader through the main points of a mystery story. And now you write your mystery in a flow state. All right, I hope that helps. I just thought I'd bring it down because it can be involved, and I know previously I've done the 40 chapter outline, which walks you through 40 chapters step by step. So this just frees you to write your story. If you're trying to jam things into the right place, you don't have to worry about that. You just write your mystery with these 4 parts. All right, I hope that helps. So thank you so much for watching. Keep writing. And if you haven't explored Audible before, there's a link in the description below for a 30-day free trial. Audible is a sponsor of Write a Killer Mystery, so so there you are. I'm very proud that Audible supports this mystery writing sequence. So thank you very much. Keep writing, and I will see you next time.